In the heart of Seoul, where glass towers sparkled against the sky and the city pulsed with ambition, Bisrat quietly swept the hospital floors. She was a young Ethiopian woman who had left her homeland to seek a better life. Though she worked as a janitor in one of Korea's most prestigious private hospitals, her quiet dignity and sharp eyes never allowed her to fade into the background. Every evening, when most staff rushed home, Bisrat remained, mopping the halls, polishing the railings, and humming soft tunes from her childhood. But beneath her humble uniform, her heart carried resilience. The fateful encounter one late night, as she cleaned the surgical wing, Bisrat noticed something strange. In a recovery room, a wealthy patient, one with connections so high that even doctors treated him with fear, was attempting to harm himself. His trembling hands clutched the wires from the monitor, moving them dangerously close to his throat. Before she could even think, Bisrat rushed in. She gently wrestled the wires from his hands, whispering firmly, "Shoo! Don't do this. Life is bigger than pain. Please, breathe." The patient struggled, his voice frantic, but Bisrat placed her hand over his mouth softly yet firmly. Her eyes filled with a quiet strength that spoke louder than words. He froze, stunned by her courage and gentleness. Slowly he calmed. Just then, the door opened, revealing Dr. Han Jun-seo, the young billionaire doctor who owned the hospital. At only 33, he had inherited wealth and status, but his brilliance as a neurosurgeon made him a legend in medical circles. Cold, untouchable, and feared by his staff, he had never once noticed the janitor who worked in his hospital, until now. He stood frozen, watching Bisrat. A janitor, untrained in medicine, had just saved his most difficult patient with nothing but human instinct and compassion. After the incident, Dr. Han called her to his office. "Who taught you to do that?" he demanded, his sharp eyes piercing hers. Bisrat bowed her head, clutching her mop handle. "No one. I just saw his pain, and I could not stand and watch." For the first time in years, Dr. Han didn't know what to say. He was used to people flattering him, fearing him, or begging him. But this woman, this janitor, looked at him with calm honesty. No fear, no awe, just the truth. From that day, he found his eyes unconsciously searching for her. He would catch her humming as she worked, her face glowing with sincerity even in the most menial of tasks. Something about her unsettled him. The walls began to fall one evening. As Bisrat was leaving, rain poured heavily outside. She had no umbrella, so she simply tied her scarf tighter and prepared to run. To her shock, Dr. Han appeared beside her, holding out an umbrella. "You'll get sick," he said flatly. Bisrat blinked, hesitant. "I can manage, sir." But he walked beside her anyway, his expensive shoes splashing in puddles. For the first time, the mighty doctor looked human. They walked in silence, the sound of rain between them. From then on, he found excuses to speak with her. Sometimes it was under the pretext of asking about the cleanliness of the ward, other times about the patients she had observed. Bisrat's simple, compassionate insights often left him stunned. "You see people," he told her one night. "Isn't that what everyone should do?" She replied softly. Love unfolds. Weeks turned into months. Rumors spread through the hospital, whispers that the cold-hearted doctor had begun to change. He smiled more, he listened more, and the reason was always seen nearby, the Ethiopian janitor with warm eyes. He began to drive her home, though she protested. He brought her books to read during her breaks, curious about her dreams. Slowly, Bisrat admitted that she once wished to study nursing, but life's hardships had placed her in janitorial work. Something in Dr. Han's heart broke open. For the first time, he saw beyond wealth, status, and perfection. He saw love in its purest, most unassuming form. The confession one evening, as the cherry blossoms fell outside the hospital, Dr. Han took Bisrat to the hospital rooftop. "I've spent my life surrounded by the finest things money can buy," he said quietly, "but none of it ever touched me the way your heart has. You saved not only my patient that night, you saved me. Bisrat, I don't want to just see you in the halls anymore. I want you in my life, by my side. Will you marry me?" Bisrat's eyes filled with tears. She had never imagined a world where love would bridge such impossible distances between a billionaire doctor and a humble janitor. But in that moment, she saw the truth in his trembling voice. "Yes," she whispered, "but only if you promise to always see me. Not the uniform, not the silence, just me." Dr. Han smiled, the first genuine smile his staff had ever seen. Always. The wedding of two worlds, their wedding shocked Korea. The media called it the fairy tale of the century. A billionaire neurosurgeon marrying an Ethiopian janitor. Critics scoffed, but love silenced them all. Bisrat walked down the aisle in a simple white gown, her beauty radiant. Dr. Han, usually cold and composed, couldn't hold back his tears as he vowed to cherish her forever. At that moment, they weren't doctors, janitors, billionaires, and immigrants. They were simply two souls who had found each other in the most unexpected way. Years later, Bisrat would walk through the same hospital, not as a janitor, but as the director of a foundation she and her husband had built, supporting underprivileged students in medicine and nursing. Patients still whispered about the love story that began when a janitor closed a man's mouth to save him. And every evening, when the halls grew quiet, Dr. Han would still find his wife humming softly as she walked beside him. Because sometimes, love doesn't need grand gestures. Sometimes it begins with silence. Introduce Bisrat, a young Ethiopian immigrant janitor in Seoul's most prestigious hospital. After the whirlwind of their wedding, Dr. Han swept Bisrat away to Jeju Island, a place where the sea kissed the horizon and the air smelled of salt and blossoms. Working the villa he had chosen overlooked the ocean. Wide glass windows let the moonlight pour into their room, painting silver across the sheets. For the first time since the ceremony, Bisrat and Han were far from feet as she stepped out of her gown into a soft white dress he had chosen for her. His eyes lingered on her, not just in admiration of her beauty, but in awe that she was truly his. "You look like the ocean itself," he whispered, his voice husky. Bisrat blushed, laughing softly. "And you look like a man seeing the ocean for the first time." He crossed the room slowly, every step deliberate, his gaze never leaving hers. When he reached her, he brushed a strand of hair from her face and kissed her forehead, then her nose, then finally her lips, gentle at first, then deepening as though he was tasting the promise of forever. Their honeymoon became a time of discovery. By day, they wandered through flower fields, rode bicycles along the coast, and dipped their feet in the sea. Bisrat would splash him with water, and Han, usually so composed, would chase after her like a boy, laughter echoing across the waves. By night, the world outside ceased to exist. The villa became their sanctuary of passion. Han traced every curve of her face with reverence, whispering in Korean, "Sarangi, you are my heart." Bisrat, in turn, responded in Amharic, "Uadihalihu, I love you." They spoke in kisses, in touches, in the way their bodies fit perfectly together. Their love was both tender and fierce, like two souls finally finding home after years of searching. One evening, as the waves roared outside, Bisrat lay in his arms, her head on his chest. She could hear the steady beat of his heart, strong and certain. "Do you ever regret marrying someone like me?" she whispered. Han tilted her chin up, his eyes intense. "Bisrat, if I had all the women in the world lined up before me, wealthy, powerful, beautiful, I would still choose only you, because you are the only one who touched me here." He pressed her hand against his heart. Tears filled her eyes, but he kissed them away, murmuring, "No more doubts. From this night forward, you are mine, and I am yours." Their lips met again, this time with a fire that needed no words. The sunrise of forever on the beach as the sun rose, golden light washing over them. Han stood behind Bisrat, his arms wrapped around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. "Do you see it?" he whispered. "This sunrise, it's us. A new beginning." Bisrat leaned into him, her smile soft. "Then let's never let it set." And as the waves kissed their feet and the sky blazed with light, they sealed the promise with another kiss, passionate, eternal, filled with everything they had yet to live together. When they returned from Jeju, The world expected them to slip into ordinary routines. Dr. Han back to his long surgeries, Bisrat into her quiet duties at home. But their love refused to settle into monotony. Every evening, no matter how late Han came back from the hospital, Bisrat waited for him. Sometimes with a warm Ethiopian dish, sometimes simply with candles lit and soft music playing. He would enter exhausted, but the sight of her waiting turned his weariness into hunger. Not just for food, but for her. One night, he dropped his briefcase by the door, pulled her into his arms before she could even greet him, and kissed her breathless against the wall. "Junisio," she gasped, laughing against his lips. "I've missed you all day," he murmured, his voice rough with need. "Every second I held a scalpel. I wished it was your hand instead." Their passion was not limited to nights in bed. It spilled into everyday life. In the kitchen, flour on her cheek from baking, he would sneak behind her, wrap his arms around her waist, and kiss her neck until she blushed. In the garden, she would water the flowers, only to find him pulling her under the shade tree, his lips stealing hers until the watering spilled forgotten onto the grass. Even in his office, when she brought him lunch, he sometimes locked the door just to hold her, whispering, "5 minutes. Just 5 minutes with you is enough to make me stronger than 1,000 hours of rest." Their nights together were fire and softness intertwined. Han treated Bisrat's body like something sacred. Every kiss, every touch deliberate, as though memorizing her again and again. But Bisrat, fiery in her own right, learned how to disarm him, the untouchable billionaire doctor who once lived behind walls. She teased him, challenged him, sometimes even took control, leaving him breathless. They discovered each other endlessly, and even after months of marriage, every night felt like the first. At times, Han's possessive side surfaced. Once, when a young doctor smiled a little too warmly at Bisrat during a hospital gala, Han's hand tightened around her waist, his jaw clenched. Later that night, as they returned home, Bisrat teased, "Were you jealous, my husband?" His eyes darkened, and he pulled her close. "When it comes to you, I'm not just jealous. I'm ruthless. You're mine, Bisrat. Only mine." She smiled mischievously, leaning close. "Then prove it." And he did passionately, leaving no doubt. Even in the quietest hours, lying tangled in sheets, they whispered dreams to each other. She confessed her longing to study again, and he promised to make it happen. He admitted his fears of being alone, and she promised he never would be again. They made vows every night, not just spoken, but written on each other's skin with kisses and touches. One evening, as they watched the moon from their balcony, Han cupped her face and said, "Bisrat, if eternity exists, I want it with you. Not as doctor and wife, not as billionaire and immigrant, just as man and woman who found each other." She kissed him deeply, whispering, "Then let's live every night as if eternity begins now." And they did, burning bright, loving fiercely, never letting the fire dim. Every evening became a ritual for them. When Dr. Han returned home, the moment his eyes found Bisrat, everything else fell away. Sometimes he kissed her right at the doorway, lifting her into his arms as though he couldn't wait a second longer. Other times he stood still, watching her with the kind of hunger that made her cheeks flush before he even touched her. They were insatiable, not just for each other's bodies, but for the comfort and fire that only they could spark together. At night, tangled in silk sheets, they spoke through whispers. "I love the way your heartbeat quickens when I touch you here," he would murmur, lips grazing her skin. "And I love how you look at me like I'm your only world," she would reply, arching into his embrace. Their passion wasn't wild chaos. It was deliberate, slow-burning intensity. A dance where every sigh, every gasp, every kiss carried meaning. They teased each other constantly, turning everyday moments into sparks of intimacy. If Bisrat wore one of his shirts around the house, Han would abandon whatever he was doing, murmuring, "You can't walk around like that and expect me to think straight." If Han tried to bury himself in work at home, Bisrat would slide into his lap, blocking his papers. Your wife needs you more than your patience right now. And of course, the papers always had to wait. Whenever their passion grew especially fierce, Han would whisper against her lips, "Do you remember Jeju? That first night?" Bisrat would smile, pulling him closer. "Every night with you feels like Jeju." And then their love would unfold again, like waves crashing endlessly against the shore. Han was devoted, but his love had a possessive edge. He never tired of telling her, "You are mine, Bisrat. No one will ever take you from me." His tone was not just protective, but burning with need. And Bisrat, instead of resisting, leaned into it because she loved being wanted so completely. "Yes, Junicio," she would whisper, kissing him with fire. "I am yours, only yours." Months passed, but the flame only grew hotter. Some nights they loved each other with aching tenderness, slow and reverent, as if afraid to let the night end. Other nights, their passion was fierce, urgent, consuming, leaving them breathless and laughing in each other's arms when the dawn came, no matter how the world looked at them. A billionaire and a once janitor, an unlikely pair. The truth was simple. In their bed, in their arms, they were equals, lovers, and everything to each other. One evening, after a night of deep passion, Bisrat lay curled against his chest. He kissed the crown of her head and whispered, "If this is a dream, I never want to wake up." She smiled sleepily, tracing his chest with her fingers. "Then let's never wake up. Let's keep dreaming together. Every night, every touch." And as the moonlight bathed them, their love burned again, fierce and eternal. Two souls endlessly lost and found in each other. Years passed, but their love never cooled. Unlike many marriages that slipped into routine, theirs only deepened. Each night was still alive with the same hunger that had sparked on Jeju Island. Each kiss carried the weight of promise. Dr. Han remained brilliant in the operating room, saving countless lives. Yet every time he walked out of the hospital doors, his heart belonged not to fame, not to wealth, but to the woman waiting for him at home. And Bisrat, once invisible in hospital hallways, now walked proudly by his side. She had not only fulfilled her dream of studying nursing, but had become his partner in building a foundation for the poor and forgotten. Still, no matter her titles or successes, she remained the same woman who once calmed a desperate patient with nothing but compassion and quiet strength. One evening, after hosting a charity gala, they returned to their home overlooking Seoul. The city glittered below, but in their hearts, the real light was each other. Han pulled Bisrat close, his lips brushing her ear. "Do you know the world still asks me why I chose you?" Bisrat looked up at him with her knowing smile. "And what do you tell them?" "I tell them the truth," he whispered, kissing her deeply. "That you are my everything, my first love, my last love, my forever." She wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing her forehead to his. "And you are mine, Junicio. No walls, no masks, no distance. Just us, always." That night, their passion burned again. Not as newlyweds, but as eternal lovers. Two souls who had found their home in each other. They made love as if time itself could not touch them, as if the night would never end. And when dawn came, they lay wrapped together, their breathing in sync, their hearts forever bound. For Bisrat and Dr. Han, there was no ending, only a love that lived on in every sunrise, every touch, every whispered promise. Their story, born from silence, ended not with words, but with the fire of a love that would never fade. Years passed, yet their bedroom remained a sanctuary of passion. They never let routine dull their fire. Sometimes he lit candles and filled the room with soft music, kissing her as though it were their wedding night all over again. Other times she surprised him by pulling him close after a long day, whispering with playful eyes, "Dr. Han, your patient tonight is me." Their love was both tender and fierce, playful and consuming. Even after years of marriage, they discovered each other again and again, as though they were still on their honeymoon. One night, lying in his arms after their love had left them breathless, Bisrat traced his lips with her fingertip. "Do you ever wonder if love like this can last forever?" she whispered. Han caught her hand, kissed her palm, and pressed it against his heart. It already has. The day I met you, forever began. Her eyes filled with tears, but he kissed them away gently. Then, looking into her soul, he murmured, "If eternity is real, it will find us still like this, together, in love, without end." Bisrat smiled through her tears, resting her head on his chest. Then eternity will be beautiful. And so, their story did not end. It blossomed endlessly. Each kiss, each embrace, each whispered vow was not a conclusion, but a continuation of a love too fierce, too tender, too eternal to ever fade. The years flowed like a gentle river, but their love never weakened. What began in a quiet hospital corridor blossomed into a lifetime of passion. Every night, Han still reached for Bisrat as if she were the only light in his world. Every morning, Bisrat woke in his arms, still feeling like a bride. They grew older, but time only deepened their bond. Their love was not measured in years, but in heartbeats, in kisses, in the fire that never faded. One evening, sitting together on their balcony, the city below glowing like 1,000 stars, Han whispered, "Do you know the greatest miracle of my life?" Bisrat smiled softly, her head resting on his shoulder. "Tell me." "That I found you," he said, his voice trembling with truth. "A janitor with the heart of an angel, who became my wife, my passion, my forever." Bisrat kissed him gently, her hand over his heart. "And I found you, the man the world feared, but who gave me love that will never end." As the night wrapped around them, they held each other close. Two souls who had defied distance, class, and time itself. And in that embrace, their story reached its perfect conclusion. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy the story, please leave a comment, also like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and click on the notification icon so that you will get notified whenever a new story is uploaded.